Texas, and most of it is under construction, basically 96 miles of it from Salado to Hillsboro. And those of you who are maybe somewhat familiar with Texas, basically roughly from Austin to Dallas-Fort Worth, all of that are. And what the project would basically is doing is expanding the freeway from 4-lane to a 6-lane facility, and also converting the existing 2-way frontage roads to 1-way frontage roads. And we in Texas are kind of lucky that we have service roads, continuous frontage roads throughout all along our freeway system, which is not the case in most of the country. So we enjoy those. And it's a multi-year construction project. It's expected to be completed in 2017. And it's really divided into multiple segments, total 14 segments, and there's a total of 17 projects in the whole 96 miles of area. And it's a heavily traveled segment with 100,000 vehicles travel through this segment every day. And about 2/3 of the Texas population live within 50 miles of I-35. So you can imagine how much heavily traveled it is. And the construction cost is approximately $2.1 billion. Now that's a big number if you look at it, but it's 96 miles of construction, and it also includes right-of-way constructions. So where was the need? Why was TTI got involved? Because it's a multiple public agencies are involved in this. The cities, counties, number of TxDOT area offices, and number of TxDOT districts. About 1,000 businesses are along the 96 miles of construction area, and numerous property owners, because right-of-way has to be bought. And then, of course, there's the traveling public that gets impacted. So what was the TTI? On this project, TxDOT basically wanted to try some new things and use some old concepts they had used on other projects which were successful. And one of this concept was mobility coordination, which TxDOT had tried on a different project in the Dallas area on US 75, and they had received a very positive feedback from the public. So basically what mobility coordination does is they hire an outside agency to be the liaison between TxDOT and the contractors and provide information to the public. So this time they decided to use TTI as mobility coordinator, and TxDOT also wanted to use some of the travel time Bluetooth related research TTI is working on, some of the speed and queue management research TTI is working on. So combine all those concepts and make just the smartest corridor in the country. That was the TxDOT goal for this project. So the construction traveler information system and the intelligent corridors. So how we used Google Earth for this. In the initial stages of the project, for mobility coordination, we needed to have a high-level visual tool that could convey the project information to the stakeholders, basically all the businesses and the traveling public. And it has to be macro-level communication, so we couldn't really take all the PCP plans and start showing them to the public. It has to be easy to adapt to changing scenarios, because there were some projects which were still in the design stage, and there were some projects which were under construction, there were some projects which were unfunded, and yet another which were already complete. So to have all that different type of information, and as you move along time, some projects would get complete, and some other projects would get into the next stage which were in design. So we have to be able to change them so that we can provide the most up-to-date and current information. And then it has to be seamless across different projects, because you have 17 different projects and 14 different segments. You start opening different files, it becomes very cumbersome. It has to be portable. Like if you start a traffic control plans, you have a big set of traffic control plans, or even if it's a digital file, the PDF file would be so huge, it's hard to take it from place to place. So GE, Google Earth, I'm using the acronym GE here. And before I go further, I would like to stress upon the fact I have no affiliation whatsoever with Google. I purely work for Texas A&M system. So one way or the other, I am not trying to promote or unpromote Google Earth. I'm simply presenting what we did with it. So Google Earth provided us the ability to show the project limits, the overall project limits for the 96 miles, for each segment and each project separately. We were also able to show, since it provides us a common platform across all segments, and it's a single file, very easy or easier to maintain and manage. So when we make changes, all the changes are made in a single file. And it's a convenient way of switching from overall view to detail. And here's some examples. We color coded it. Here you have black, yellow, red, blue. Red and yellow are the active segments. This is from the initial stages of the project. And blacks were already completed, and the blues were still unfunded. So you can switch back and forth when you're trying to give information to the public. We could go from, okay, show us only what's active, versus you can look at the overall versus the detailed view. You could, in the previous slide, I'm showing the entire segment, entire section, the entire project from Salado to Hillsborough. But in this slide, then I'm just showing the segment 1B. And also, we also encoded in the description segment, we also encoded the information about if the project has to be let when and when would it get completed. So that we have an overall idea of when we're providing that information to the public, if somebody wants to know, okay, my project in this area is not let now, when would it get let, and how long it will take to complete it. So we could on the fly provide that information. Then we also used it as a macro level planning tool. This was in the second stage of the project when we started planning the traveler information system. Since we already had the project limits and the segment limits in Google Earth, so this kind of just came along. We never really planned on using it in different ways. We just started with the project limits, and then once we had the project limits in there, so now we are trying to deploy different ITS devices to set up the traveler information system. So you have your Bluetooth readers, you have electronics, cameras, portable changeable missile sign. So where do we place them? Where do we locate them in the field? So that's what we used it for, roughly, as a preliminary idea. So to decide sensor locations, now we all know sensors have to be placed so that we can get meaningful data. They don't necessarily have to be equally spaced. But whereas for the DMS signs, the PCMS locations, they have to be somewhat equally spaced. Since Google Earth gives us the ability to measure distances, plus you can also see, okay, this location you have more population and you have an exit ramp and on ramp. A lot of people get off here, so you will get meaningful data here. So you really need a sensor here. Versus you can space that sensor far away if it's in more of a rural area and there really isn't a ramp there. So it kind of gave us that ability without having to go in the field all the time. So it provided us field level detail in office. Now here I would like to say, it's not always updated as current as we would like it to be. So there's still some need to go in the field and confirm what you see. But for a big project, it gives you a pretty good idea of, I can expect something like this. There might be some changes. 4 out of 5 locations, I'll find what I see in the office. 1 location might be different. infrastructure available to install those cameras and electronics, things like that. The next use is for operational support of IT devices. This is kind of really interesting because you don't really think about using a Google Earth or a database for operational support. What we do, we have two different we kind of use it for two different things in terms of operational support. One is maintenance, and the second is try to understand if something is going wrong in the field, could those things be related? So the first one, the maintenance support. Let's say somebody complains, or we get a complaint which says, close to mile marker 327, the southbound DMS sign is not working. Okay. So we need to figure out who is responsible for that DMS sign, because we have different vendors for the PCMS signs. With Google Earth, what we have done is, when we coded all those things in there, we organize them by vendor, by location, by mile marker. So now we go to mile marker 327, and you can turn on and turn off the layers, and so you can figure out exactly which vendor is responsible for that PCMS sign. Now we know who to contact rather than trying to figure out from a bunch of files as to where that mile marker is, where that sign is, what's the address of that sign, and who to contact. And the second one, the understanding patterns. With Bluetooth readers or even with electronics, sometimes they start going down. And now it could be random that randomly the device is failing. Or there could be a pattern here. And what we found is sometimes you'll have a cluster of 3 or 4 Bluetooth readers going down at the same time that you won't be getting any data from. By looking at Google Earth and the locations, if they are close by, it's a cluster. So you can try to figure out, so maybe there is a communications problem here and not the device problem. But if they're random, it could be random, because if one is going down at mile marker 200 and the other one is going down at mile marker 397, probably there's no connection. So that was the second use we had for this. And then we also use it now as a graphic inventory. Now you don't really think about using Google Earth as an inventory or a database, but it kind of just evolved. As engineers, mostly you'll think about using Excel to make a list of things or an inventory of field devices. Instead we use this. And the advantage of using this is we can also look into the field, into the street view and see this. And another advantage is when in the description section, we can actually code in the IP address for the live feed of the data for each device. And these are hyperlinked, and I can click on it, and it takes me to a real-time data website. And of course, you have to authenticate it. And this is a snapshot of the CCTV, but actually you can get the live feed. And then summary of our experience with Google Earth is, on the plus side, it's easy to use, it's very intuitive, you don't need special skills, it's available for free, and you have the ability to link other information, other files in it, and hyperlink them, and it's easy to filter through layers by clicking, unclicking folders. On the flip side, it does crash a whole lot. And then it needs an internet connection. I was planning to show you some of the things, but it won't let me get to the website. And then if not organized, it can look like. That's all I have. Thank you. Questions?
Questions? So are you saying that Google Earth have the inventory of the roadway system? Is that what you said?
No. No, we located all cameras, and the PCMS signs. We located them in a file on Google Earth. I wish I had gotten to it. Like here you see all these blue and red dots, the camera sign, the PCMS sign. All these we coded into it. Google Earth has the ability, it says add, and then you can put a place mark on it, or you can draw a line, or you can add a picture in it. So that's what we did.
You may want to tell her how you could overlay some of the, you could take some of the CAD files and overlay them in Google Earth.
Yes. Google Earth also lets you overlay CAD files into it, but those CAD files have to be specifically referenced so that they would match up with the Google Earth file. And then you can also overlay pictures on it. Basically, it has a little add feature. Do you use Google Earth often enough?
Who, me?
That's the question.
Does everybody in this room uses Google Earth?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it lets you add your own points, and that's what we did. So we used those features to, it lets you draw lines, polygons, and place marks for Bluetooth readers, for cameras, for PCMS locations. We just used the add place mark and changed the setting of that place mark to show, make it look like a camera, or make it look like a sign, or whatever we wanted to make it look like. And it also lets you see how on this one here you have a camera and a blue dot at the same place? That tells you that our camera and our Bluetooth reader are located at the same pole. So for some of the devices we use the same support structure, and for some other devices we had to use separate ones. So that's another advantage we have from looking at graphically, that we can tell which devices are co-located and which devices are not.
From your work within Google Earth, are you able to export, say, a Google Earth file, a KML or KMZ file?
I can export it to a Excel file.
Excel?
Yes.
Okay. Do you also give them the coordinates
Yes.
in that Excel
Yes.
file? Great.
But you can only get the coordinates in the Excel file if you are using place marks. If you are using a line, you can export it, but then it would be too many points for you to get any meaningful information
Okay,
for the coordinates.
okay.
Was that Excel file and exported?
No, for this particular one, we actually coded in Google Earth because we were planning it.
No, the picture of the Excel file, is that from a Google Earth export?
No. That was just my way of showing. Generally, we engineers think of Excel when we think of an inventory or list of items.
So, given the title of your presentation, this may be a silly question, but since you're not advocating Google Earth in particular, were there other tools that you considered that might have had similar functionality that you could have used?
I can't say we did, because this was really more, it just evolved. This was not a tool we were planning to use. This was just happened. We were just looking for something to use that would be visualized and would give us that tool, and something easy to use and everybody can understand without having to explain. We didn't want to go out and get a special software on which we have to get training how to use it. Google Earth is something we use in the office just for general stuff. We are trying to figure out what is the geometry of a roadway. So it kind of just came out of that. Yes, sir.
After using this the way you have, would you say it's affected the dynamics of how your teams are working together now? And if so, how significant do you feel it is?
We actually find it very effective and very installation we have done, we try to put it in Google Earth so that we can see where it is, and we also put a link to it. And the link is really useful because you can actually click on the link and see if your device is working or not.
Right, I understand that, and I think that's fantastic. What I'm trying to dig deeper into with my question is, do you feel it's changing the workflow processes and the little dynamics of how your colleagues are working together? Are you changing process, or do you see it changing business processes in the future? It's kind of an open-ended question, and if you want to
I'm
think
not
on it, we
sure.
can talk later.
I'm not sure about that because we were in some ways using it before. It's just we hadn't used it on a large scale project like that. And just like I said before, it was not a planned effort, and I don't think this is the only tool we'll use for visualization, even for other projects, and something better might come along.
But let me ask it this way, and then I'll step aside. Do you feel the use of these visualization tools is changing the way your organization is thinking?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think it will help the collaboration among your colleagues, right, the project team.
Correct,
Right?
yes.
And then
it
it
does.
helps the public engagement for sure.
Wonderful.
Yes,
At
definitely.
least two checkboxes.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely, because you were just using the word Google Earth, so I got like, Google Earth is not the only tool we would just want to use. Yes, sir.
So I was wondering, since you're using the free version of Google Earth, you have to share the data that you put in here, the KZM file or something, right? Or did you have to institute some sort of database sharing or file sharing, and in order to, for instance, enable other offices use, or to go in the field with like a computer use it?
Right, we just send that little KMG file to everybody, and
Okay.
whenever it gets updated, we have a special SharePoint folder for this project, and it just always stays in that folder, so whoever updates it puts it back in there.
And you create one like KZM file per project, so you keep them separate that way?
Well, this is the only large scale project we have used it for.
Okay.
And there's only a certain number of people who are working on this project and who have access to that folder.
So there's only one file.
Yes. Any other questions?
Yeah, when you mentioned the use of it has been evolving, kind of a two-part. How big is the project team that's collaborating together? And I'm wondering if you could, tell us how many people have been coming up with new ideas. Is it primarily one person that the evolution is coming from with these new
No.
ideas, or how much of the project team is actually engaging in new ways to use it that they didn't initially intend?
About 20 people are working on this project from Northern TTI, and the idea really just first started with putting the project limits, the segment limits, and we also actually did include the different phases and steps of the construction plans in Google Earth, and that was used actually not that much, but the project limits and the segment limits were used a whole lot and are still being used. And then once we had that, the people who looked at the travel information system were different than people who were involved with the mobility coordination. But everybody knew about the file. And like I said before, we have been using Google Earth earlier just in general use, like if we want to look at the roadway geometry of something we are trying, instead of going in the field, sometimes we will just look at the street view and see if it's a 2-lane roadway versus a 4-lane. Things like that. So everybody in the organization is somewhat familiar with Google Earth, and when you're trying to figure out, okay, where to locate that device, and what does it look like in the field, the street view is over there, is there a support structure available? So those ideas came from different people. And then when it became an inventory, it's kind of just, I guess, intuitive to use it as an inventory once you have all the devices in it.
Any more questions for Roma?